Stop. I'll buy them. 3 Zulu girls hang upside down. Their tattoo, the one that saved my life. The words tore out of him before he knew he was speaking. His voice sounded strange in the frozen air, hoarse and low, like it belonged to someone else. Snowflakes drifted between him and the ramshackle barn, soft and slow, uncaring, while inside everything was hard edges and shouting and rope. The trader turned his head first, then his shoulders, fur collar brushing his jaw. He was a thick man with red cheeks and a nose that had been broken too many times. Behind him, in the dim light that bled in through gaps in the boards, 3 bodies swung gently from a roof beam, tied by their ankles, skirts pulled by gravity toward their shoulders. Their hands were bound behind their backs. Black hair dangled down like dark rope. They were not girls, not really. Young women, late teens, maybe early 20s, old enough to hold their chins firm even upside down. The tattoo was on the calf of the one in the middle. Jonas saw it between strands of hair, and their slow turning. A ring of small black triangles, inked under the skin, circling the ankle like a crown. He saw it, and everything in him stopped and burned. The trader squinted through the half-open door. "You what?" "I said stop." Jonas stepped forward, boots crunching on the compacted snow, hand lifting slightly from his coat, away from the axe slung at his back. "I'll buy them. All 3. The other men in the yard went quiet. A pair of log haulers in wool coats, a trapper with fox pelts at his feet. They watched with an animal stillness, breath smoking in pale plumes. Behind them, the tree line stood in cold witness, spruce and pine, heavy with snow, a dark wall against a pale sky. Inside the barn, one of the women made a sound. Not a cry. A breath caught too hard. The rope creaked. The trader tugged his coat tighter, eyeing Jonas. "You a buyer now, Northman?" Jonas's jaw worked. "Today I am." The man snorted, a sound thick with phlegm and amusement. "You're a tree cutter. I've seen you downriver. Camp with the big sawmill. Don't tell me you're branching out." He smiled at his own joke. No one else did. Jonas didn't answer. He was looking past him, into the barn, at that ankle. The ink was smudged by distance and shadow, but he knew it like he knew his own scars. Snow rattled softly on the barn roof. A horse stamped somewhere behind the stable. A wind came thin and sharp from the river, threading through his coat, through wool and flannel, through skin. "Why you got them like that?" Jonas asked, voice flat. "Blood rushes to the head," the trader said. "Makes them quiet. Softens them up. I got a buyer coming from the camp 2 days north. He likes them obedient." His eyes narrowed. "Unless you're looking to get ahead of him." Something in Jonas's face must have changed, because the man lifted his hands, palms out. "Work hands, lumber cookhouse girls, whatever they want to call it. I'm not the one doing the hard sin here. I'm just moving stock where there's demand." Jonas stepped closer. "You're moving people." "They're cargo," the man said. "Came on a ship same as grain. Some governor's experiment gone wrong down on the coast. They got no papers, no family, no tongue anyone up here cares to understand. That makes them cargo." He tilted his head, eyes bright. "Unless you're calling yourself family." The rope in the barn squeaked again. Jonas forced himself not to look away. "How much?" he asked. The trader's smile went slow. "All 3? "All 3. Why?" The man's voice was sharper, now suspicious. "A longer wages on your belt. You can't afford them. And don't tell me it's charity. Ain't no charity in these woods. What are they to you?" Jonas swallowed. The name rose in him like heat. Tandi. The snow had been softer that winter, farther south. Not so deep. Weeks ago, maybe months. Time blurred under the weight of labor and cold. He remembered blood on snow, his own breath rattling, the bite of fever, and a dark face bending over him with eyes like coals banking themselves carefully. A wrist with that same ring of triangles reaching for his fingers, pressing bark and herbs into his palm. "You will not die here," the voice had said, slow and careful in broken English. "You must go north. You must live where the trees sing and no one knows your name." Her hand on his chest, strong and unyielding. Not a lover's, a command. The tattoo had shifted when she moved. Always that circle at her ankle. He had asked once, head swimming. She had shaken her head. "Not for you to know," she'd said. "Only to remember." He remembered. "They're not anything to me," he lied. "But I can't watch a man hang them like sides of meat." The trader studied him, chewing the inside of his cheek. A crow called harshly from the trees. Somewhere, an axe struck wood, distant, rhythmic. "Double what the northerner's offering," the trader said finally. "He's paying good. Claims he's building a proper town. Needs women for washing and cookpots. You want to undercut him. You pay for the trouble." Jonas's mouth went dry. Double would be months of wages. Maybe a year. Money he didn't have in coin, and he would not take a loan from the company man. Dead in these woods was another kind of rope. "Put them on their feet," Jonas said. "We'll talk price when I see their faces. You're seeing all you need to see." The trader's tone was getting bored. "They're strong. They're breathing. They're quiet. You get more than that. You count yourself blessed." Jonas's hand tightened near the strap of his axe. "Put them down." A long moment stretched, thin and brittle. The trapper shifted, snow cracking under his boot. "Let him look, Eric," he muttered. "You got your fun." Eric, that was the name. Jonas locked it away without meaning to. Eric spat in the snow, a brown stain on white. "Fine," he said, voice edged. He jerked his head at the barn. "Peter, let them down. Slowly, you mule." Inside, boots thumped. Rope rasped over wood. Jonas stepped under the low doorway into the smell of old hay, animal dung, and human fear. The light was colder here, sifting in through the missing planks and broken strips. The three women swung gently as the man inside knotted the rope higher, lowering them until their heads brushed the straw-strewn floor. Their faces were flushed dark from the blood rushing down, lips slightly parted. Their eyes glared, black and hot, at everything and nothing. The one in the middle blinked as her hair brushed the ground. Her gaze snapped to him. Jonas felt it hit like a thrown stone. Not Thandi, but the tattoo was the same dot her eyes flicked down, just once, toward his hands. Then to his chest, as if looking for something he did not know was visible. Her feet came down at last. Peter cursed under his breath as he untied the knots, rough fingers scraping skin. She stumbled, but didn't fall, legs shaking, then forced them straight. Rope marks ringed her ankles like bruised bracelets. The other two swayed, arms jerking uselessly behind them, faces set. Jonas saw the ink clearly now. Black triangles circling her ankle. Some of them faded, as if the skin had fought to reject the memory. He heard his own voice come out quiet. "Who marked you?" Her jaw clenched. "Why you ask?" The accent was thick, but the words cut clean. Eric laughed behind him. "Look at that. Northman finds a tongue he likes." Jonas ignored him. "There was another," he said to her, "like you, with the same mark." Her eyes narrowed. "Where?" He swallowed. "South. Fever town near the river bend. Shanties and clay. They called it Crossroads." He stopped, throat tightening. The woman's face changed. Hope flared and died so fast it barely had time to breathe. "Thandi," she whispered. She almost fell forward, the name itself a step. "You saw Thandi?" His fingers curled. Yes. Is she here? The question came like a blow. Is she with you? She said. She promised. She's not here, Jonas said. The words tasted like ash. She sent me north, she said. She said I should live where the trees sing. His voice shook on the remembered phrase. The woman stared. Eric's amusement dimmed, eyes flicking between them. She had a fever, Jonas added, softer. She burned. She pulled me out of it. I left. His breath clouded in the cold barn. I left before I saw her again. The woman's shoulders set. Whatever had flickered in her eyes hardened into something heavier. Then she's dead. She said it as if finishing a math sum. If Thandi says go and you stay, you die. Her bound hands flexed behind her back, rope tightening. You owe her, she added, gaze cutting straight into him. Jonas nodded once. I know. Eric made a disgusted sound. That's enough chatter. You want him or not, Logger? His impatience had an edge now, a warning. Jonas turned, the barn seeming to tilt around him. How much? He asked again. Eric named a number that made Peter's eyebrows jump. Jonas didn't flinch. I'll pay, he said. With what? Eric stepped closer. You think I don't know what you boys make up at that camp? I've seen the chits you get. They ain't worth the paper once you leave their river. Only coin I take is the kind that clinks. Jonas reached into his coat slowly. Not for the axe. For the oilskin pouch sewn into the lining. He hadn't meant to touch it again this winter. He had been saving it for something he could not name. Freedom, maybe. Passage out of these woods. A piece of land far from the saw's scream. He pulled it out and loosened the cord. 5 gold coins slid into his palm, heavy and bright in the barn's thin light. Eric swore softly. Riverboat payout, Jonas said. Last season, before I came up country. I've been holding on. The coins looked alien against his rough fingers. This is 2/3 of what you asked. It's all I have. I'll work the rest off. You know where to find me. Eric's eyes gleamed. You offering your back as collateral? He laughed. You already gave it to the company man. I'll do separate work, Jonas said. Haul for you. Cut for you. You've seen me swing an axe. Oh, I've seen, Eric said. You work like a man trying to chop his way out of hell. He looked at the women, at their dark eyes, the rope burns, the proud set of their mouths even now. He looked at the gold. He looked at Jonas. Half now, he said at last, greedy calculation settling behind his gaze. Half in labor by thaw. You don't pay. I take them back. Or I take you. Peter snorted. And who hauls your goods if you break his back, Eric? Salway's another man, Eric said, but his tone softened. Fine. You don't pay. I take the women and your axe and your coat. I leave you to the trees. They'll finish what you started. Jonas closed his fingers around the coins, feeling the edges cut his skin. He nodded. Done. Eric grinned and held out his hand. Jonas poured 3 coins into his palm. The clink sounded too loud that the trader's fingers closed around them like a trap. Untie them, he told Peter. There's problem now. Peter moved behind the women, knife flashing at the ropes. Each strand parted with a dry snap. Arms came down slowly, stiff and trembling. Needles of pain shot through muscles that had held their own weight too long. The woman with the tattoo hissed as blood rushed back to her fingers, but she did not complain. Names? Jonas asked quietly. Looking at her dot, she hesitated. Nandi, she said. This is Lindy. And this is Sile. The other 2 lifted their chins at the sound of their names, shoulders squaring as if armor had been returned to them. Nandi, Jonas repeated. I'm Jonas. She studied him with an appraisal that made him feel transparent. You burn? She asked suddenly. He blinked. What? When Thandy healed you, Nandi said. You burn like fire? Bones shake? Yes, he said. I thought I was dying. You were, she answered. Thandy pulled you back. Now you pay. She glanced toward the door, toward the white world beyond. Where you take us, Jonas Northman? He looked out at the line of trees, their branches heavy, the sky flat and low. The camp lay upriver, a day and a half's walk through forest and snow. Smoke and sawdust, shouting and laughter, the stink of sweat in bunghouses, the company man's books. Men who had not seen a woman in months. He swallowed. To camp, he said. For now. Warm bunghouse. Hot food. Work you can choose to take or not. After the thaw. His words trailed. He had no map beyond the river ice breaking. Nandi watched him for a long beat, as if weighing the space between what he said and what he did not say. We walk, she said finally. We do not hang. She spat on the barn floor, a small dark star. And we are not cargo. Jonas nodded, throat tight. Not anymore. Eric's laugh followed them as they stepped out into the cold yard, the women blinking hard against the sudden brightness. Careful, logger, he called. You just bought yourself more trouble than timber. Snowflakes caught in Nandi's hair like tiny white embers. She pulled the thin shawl tighter around her shoulders and looked at the endless trees ahead. Which way? She asked. Jonas hitched his pack higher, feeling the familiar weight of his axe settle between his shoulders, and pointed north into the deep. Quiet woods. He took the first step as if crossing some line drawn in snow. Boots sank to the ankle, squeaking against the crust. Cold bit at his cheeks, slid fingers under his scarf. The trees swallowed the barn behind them with every yard. Eric's voice fading until there was only the sound of their breathing and the soft sigh of the forest. Nandi walked just behind him, shoulders stiff, chin high. Lindy and Sihol followed, arms wrapped around themselves, their thin skirts fluttering against bare legs. Jonas glanced back once and saw the color of their skin against the white. It looked wrong, like someone had spilled ink over a blank page. Not far, he said, though it was not true. We follow the river. Camp's upriver. There's a trail. Far is far, Sihol muttered, teeth chattering. North is north. Cold is cold. Lindy gave a small laugh that had no humor. At least we are not upside down, she said. That pulled a smile from Jonas, a quick, surprised twitch of his mouth. He handed his spare wool shirt to Sihol, thrusting it toward her without ceremony. Here, he said. You'll freeze with just that rag. She hesitated, pride wrestling with the ache in her arms. Then she took it, fingers numbed and clumsy, pulling it over her head. It hung almost to her knees, smelling of pine tar, sweat, and wood smoke. Nandi watched closely. And for us? She asked. He shrugged off his coat next, the heavy wool lined with thin fur. The wind bit immediately through his flannel. He ignored it and draped the coat over Nandi's shoulders. This is yours, she said. I have another at camp, he lied. You need it more. She studied him, then nodded and slipped her arms into the sleeves. The coat swallowed her, but she stood straighter inside it. He passed his scarf to Lindy. Tie it over your head, he said. Keep the wind out of your ears. Lindy's fingers fumbled with the knot, then tightened it with a small sigh. You will freeze, she murmured. I'm used to it, Jonas said. It wasn't boasting. It was fact. His life had narrowed to cold and wood and the weight of tools. He knew how far he could bend before he broke. They trudged on. The river lay to their right, a broad band of white with a faint gray seam where the current chewed at its own prison. The trees pressed close on the other side, trunks like pillars, branches heavy with snow that occasionally slid off with a muffled thump. Tell me of this camp, Nandi said after a while. Her breath came evenly, though her lips had gone a darker shade. How many men? 100 in high season, Jonas said. Less now. Maybe 60. Some trappers. A few teamsters with horses. A cook who swears in 3 languages. A doctor when the company remembers we're alive. No women, she said. Not many, he admitted. There was a cook's wife downriver once. She left last thaw. Said the trees were inside her head. Sile snorted. And you bring 3 more to the wolves. Jonas felt that, sharp and undeserved and exactly right. I didn't think, he said. I just saw you. Saw the tattoo. I owed Thandi. I still owe her. How you owe dead? Lindy asked softly. She can't eat what you give. Jonas thought of fever, of her hand on his chest, her voice dragging him back from the edge. I can live, he said. That's what she wanted. I can live in a way that doesn't shame what she did. That is a big word, Nandi said. Shame. He grunted. The snow brightened as cloud thinned, a pale sun pushing through. The air did not warm, but it felt less heavy. They walked until the sky shifted from flat white to a pale blue bruised at the edges. Ravens wheeled overhead, black crosses against the light. Once they came upon a fallen spruce, its roots torn from the frozen ground, a raw wound of dirt and ice. Jonas led them around it, through undergrowth that clutched at their skirts. Rest, he said when he heard their steps dragging. He pointed to a thick fir whose lower branches formed a kind of shelter. Out of the wind, they huddled beneath it, snow dusting their hair and shoulders where the needles thinned. Jonas crouched and scraped a hollow in the snow with his gloves, building a small nest of dry twigs and bark he carried in a pouch. His fingers moved from habit. Flint struck steel. Sparks bit and died until one caught, a tiny orange eye that blinked and grew. The women gasped when the flame took, but not with surprise. Fire was a language they knew. Put your hands out, he said. Not too close. They obeyed, fingers splayed. Steam rose where snow melted from their skin. The light painted their faces in flickering amber, softening the hard lines etched there by upside-down hours and voyaging months. You from where? Sile asked, watching him. Far north of here, Jonas said. Closer to the sea. My father cut trees for ship masts. My brothers, too. You have brothers, Lindy repeated, as if the idea were strange. Had, he corrected. 2 died in a storm. 1 went east and never came back. So no, he poked at the fire. I have trees. Trees do not speak, Sile said. Sometimes they do, he answered. In the wind. In the night. When the axe goes in. Nandi shifted closer to the flames, the borrowed coat rustling. You speak of them like people, she said. They take men like people, Jonas replied. They fall wrong, they crush you. You miss a cut, you bleed. They don't care if you're tired. They just stand there, heavy and waiting, like they're daring you. Nandi's mouth curved faintly. We had cows like that, she said. Back home. Big, slow, full of milk. They looked at you like they decided if you deserve it. Her eyes went distant. Then the soldiers came. Took cows, took land, took men. Left women to sing at empty crawls. The ship took you, Jonas said. The ship took what was left, she answered. We were told of work. New place. Good land. We packed what we could carry. She leaned back against the trunk, eyes half closed in memory. The water was big. It moved under us like a live thing. Women sick over the side. Children quiet. No one telling us where we go. Just that we cannot go back. The fire crackled, small and clean. How long? He asked. Long enough, she said. Long enough to forget the smell of dust. To forget the way sun feels when it does not hurt. Long enough to learn that there is no land waiting, only more men with guns telling us to move. Her jaw tightened. And then men like Eric, buying, selling, hanging. Silence settled between them, heavy but not empty. The river hissed softly in its ice. A bird chirped once and thought better of it. "We should move," Jonas said finally, standing. "Camp's still far. We need to reach the halfway shed before dark." They stamped out the fire, burying the embers in snow. The cold rushed back in, greedy. Jonas pulled his flannel tighter, wishing for his coat, then shrugged the thought away. One foot in front of the other. That was all. The day thinned as they walked, colors draining from the world until everything was blue and gray. Trees became shadows leaning close. The river's edge blurred. Jonas scanned ahead, searching for the landmark he knew, a split boulder like a cracked tooth near the bank. "There," he said at last, pointing. Beyond the rock, half buried in snow, hunched a low log structure. Its roof sagged under white weight, door hanging crooked but still on its hinges. Smoke stains blackened the logs above the entrance. He let out a breath. "Way shed," he said. "For teamsters in storm. There's a stove inside. Maybe some dry wood if the rats left us anything." The women's steps picked up. Small reserves of energy surfacing at the promise of shelter. Inside. The air smelled of mold, old tobacco, and mouse droppings. Light fell in through gaps where logs had twisted apart with age. A rusted iron stove crouched in one corner, its pipe disappearing into the roof. A heap of scrap wood lay beside it. Damp but usable. Jonas worked again without words. Fire in the stove. Snow melted in a pot for water. He broke hard biscuit from his pack, the kind that cracked teeth if you weren't careful, and softened it in the warm water with a bit of salt pork. The women ate with the quiet ferocity of people who had learned to hide hunger. They did not ask if there was more. They did not complain about taste. They simply made the food disappear and sat close to the stove, passing the dented tin mug between them, steam curling around their fingers. Jonas watched them over the rim of his own cup. The firelight carved their cheekbones, caught in eyes that held too many storms. "What work can you do?" he asked after a time, the question practical, blunt. Nandi looked at him sharply. "I won't sell you into a bunkhouse," he said, hearing the edge in his own voice. "But the camp is not a church. If you want to be there, you'll have to answer when men ask. Better if we know what answer to give." Lindy spoke first. "I cook," she said. "Better than any man in that camp, I promise. I can feed many with little." Her mouth twitched. "I can also cut wood if I must. Axe is just big knife." Sahil rolled her eyes. "She lies," she said. "She burns everything if she talks while stirring." Lindy jabbed her with an elbow. "I stir fine. You are just lazy." "I mend," Sahil said to Jonas, ignoring her. "Clothes, nets, baskets when there are reeds." She held up her hands. Even red and swollen from rope, they moved with small, precise control. "My mother said my fingers were made for making, not breaking." "And you?" Jonas asked Nandi. Her gaze held his without flinching. "I keep people alive," she said. "I worked with Thandi. Herbs, cuts, babies coming, fevers leaving. I know what keeps a man on his feet when his body wants to fall. I know what songs keep a woman from walking into the river when her heart is broken." A shadow crossed her face. "At least I did, back where plants knew my name." Jonas thought of the camp's medic, a man who drank more spirits than he rubbed on wounds. "They could use you," he said. "Men lose fingers, hands, legs. Trees fall wrong. Saw blades jump. Winter takes toes. Company man counts lost time, not lost flesh." "Company man," Nandi said. "You speak of him like a king who never walks in his own mud." Jonas tilted his head. You're not far wrong. You will take us to him? She asked. I'll take you to the camp, he said. You don't need the company man unless you want trouble. You answer to me until we figure something better. That clear? Sihel smirked. You buy us like goats and then say we answer to you like father. Jonas flushed. I bought you to stop Eric hanging you like game, he said. If I could get you to town with your own coin and a roof far from men like him, I would. But this is what there is. Trees, camp, work. I won't touch you, and I won't sell you again. That's all I can promise. The room grew even smaller around those words. The stove ticked as it heated. The wind pressed fingers through the cracks. Testing. Nandy's eyes softened. Just a fraction. It is something, she said. More than rope and a barn. She leaned back, closing her eyes. We will see what the camp is. Then we decide if we stay. You can't just walk away into the trees, Jonas said quietly. You'd last a day. 2, if the weather's kind. Then we learn to make the trees kind, Nandi answered without opening her eyes. He wanted to tell her it didn't work that way. That forests were not tamed, only cut. That men like him were as much prisoners as they were takers. The words stuck behind his teeth. Night nailed itself over the shed. Jonas gave them the small bed platform near the stove. A frame of rough boards with old straw piled under a thin blanket someone had long ago abandoned. He took the floor by the door, rolling in his own blanket, back to the cold wood. Boots still on. For a time, he listened. To their breathing, gradually evening. To the occasional murmur as one shifted, another whispered back. To the light rasp of Nandi, humming some tune so quiet it was almost nothing. A thread in the air tying them to a different sky. He stared at the ceiling, counting the lines in the logs, the gaps where stars pricked through like distant nails. He thought of Eric's grin, of the gold gone from his pocket. He thought of Fandy's hand on his chest, and the way her eyes had pinned him to life. You sleep? Nandi's voice came softly in the dark. No, he said. You regret buying us? She asked. He let the question sit a moment. Ask me in spring, he said finally. She huffed a small breath that might have been a laugh. In spring, the world is always better, she murmured. Ask any farmer. Ask any fool. Then I am both, he said. Silence folded over them again. When sleep finally came, it came like falling through snow into deeper cold. Then finding a layer of stillness underneath where nothing moved. Where even regret froze for a while. Dawn found him stiff and half numb but alive. Pale light broke through the cracks, painting thin stripes on the floor. His breath steamed as he sat up. The stove had gone cold. The women lay tangled in borrowed blankets and each other's limbs, huddling like pups against the night. Up, he said gently, tapping the stove with his boot. We need to move if we want to reach camp by dark. Nandi's eyes opened at once, alertness snapping into place. She nudged the others. Sihel groaned but rolled out of the bed, hair wild, Jonas's shirt hanging crooked off one shoulder. Lindy rubbed her eyes with the heels of her hands and sat up with surprising grace. They ate what was left hard biscuit, the last of the pork, melted snow. Jonas banked the coals properly this time, knowing some driver might bless him for it weeks from now in some other storm. Outside, the world was a fresh sheet. The night's wind had driven new snow into the old tracks. The river lay silent, its breath hidden. Jonas tightened the straps on his pack and swung it onto his shoulders. The axe thumped against his spine like a reminder. Last stretch, he said. How will they look at us? Lindy asked suddenly as they stepped into the sharp morning. Your men. Your camp. Jonas considered. Like men who've been staring at nothing but trees and each other for too long, he said. Some will be decent. Some won't. Stay close to me. Don't go off alone until we learn the patterns. Nandi walked beside him now, rather than behind. "And you?" she asked. "How you look at us?" He stared straight ahead, at the invisible line of the camp beyond the horizon. Smoke rising, saws screaming, lives grinding like ice floes against the shore. "I'm still figuring that out," he said. They followed the river north, 4 shapes moving through a white world. Behind them, the wayshed shrank and vanished. Ahead, the first faint smudge of camp smoke smeared the sky. By midday, the cold eased from knife to dull ache. The sky cleared to a hard blue that made the snow glare. Jonas's eyes narrowed against it until the camp finally pulled itself out of the horizon. A cluster of dark shapes along the river bend, smoke rising in flat gray lines. "You see?" he said, lifting his chin toward it. Nandy followed his gaze. From a distance, the camp looked like a scar cut into the forest. Trees stopped abruptly, replaced by stumps and churned snow. Rough log buildings huddled in crooked rows, roofs patched with tar paper and bark. Beyond them, along the bank, a line of logs lay chained like captured beasts, waiting for spring's thaw to carry them downriver. "There," Jonas said. "Our world." Sahil clicked her tongue. "Your world," she said softly. "We are just visiting ghosts." He didn't answer. His gut tightened as they drew closer, boots slipping on the packed paths that spiderwebbed between the buildings. Sounds grew clearer, a saw biting into wood, the rhythmic thud of axes, the coarse bark of laughter. A curse flung at a stubborn sled. A dog lifted its head from a doorway, hackles rising, then recognized Jonas's scent and thumped its tail once before settling back. Men in red wool shirts and patched coats paused mid-stride, eyes drawn first to Jonas, then to the shapes behind him. Conversation stumbled. A log dropped with a dull thud. Someone whistled, low and disbelieving. "Well, I'll be," a voice drawled from near the cookhouse. Big Tom Kessler stood with a crate in his hands, broad shoulders filling his frayed suspenders. His beard was a gray tangle, his eyes sharp under heavy brows. "Jonas bringing spring early." He set the crate down with a grunt. "You run out of trees and start cutting women out of the snow now." A few men laughed. The sound brittled. Jonas kept walking until he reached the clear space in front of the bunkhouse, near the tall pole where the company nailed notices. He stopped there, feeling ground he knew under his boots. The women gathered slightly behind him, instinctive formation, backs almost touching. "They're under my charge," he said, voice carrying just enough. "They'll need bunks, food, work, work." One of the roadmen echoed, wiping his nose on his sleeve. "I got work they can." "Shut it, Mickey," Big Tom snapped before the joke finished. He scratched his beard, eyes running over the trio with an appraising seriousness Jonas hadn't expected. "You bring him from town?" "From a trader downriver," Jonas said. "They were being sold on. On where?" Tom's tone had something dark under it. "Does it matter?" Jonas didn't want the whole story spilling into the campyard like guts. "I paid. They're here. You want more hands for kitchen, mending, sawmill first aid. Here they are." The camp's cook, a wiry man with a stained apron and a missing ear, leaned out of the cookhouse door. "Did I hear kitchen?" he called. His gaze landed on Lindy, slid sideways to the others, then back to Jonas. "You bring trouble or help, Jonas?" "Both," Jonas said. "Same as every winter." Somewhere toward the back of the yard, a door slammed. A slimmer figure in a long coat appeared, hair neat, boots clean despite the slush. Ledger under his arm. Fritz Halvorsen, the company man. He walked like the snow moved aside for him. "What's all this?" he asked, letting his gaze take in the stalled work. The clumps of men, the 3 dark faces like smudges on his tally sheet. "We got a lumber show I don't know about." Jonas straightened without meaning to. "New workers," he said. "Workers?" Halvorsen's brow arched. Up close, his face was younger than his manner, cheeks too smooth for these woods. We're not hiring extras, Jonas. The books are tight. Unless they swing axes or drive teams, I don't see the point. Nandi stepped forward, the oversized coat falling open just enough to show her thin frame and the steady line of her shoulders. I keep men alive, she said, each word deliberate. When trees fall wrong. When saw eats fingers. When cold takes toes. Halvorsen blinked at the directness. His gaze flicked to Jonas. She speaks English? Enough, Jonas said. Worked with a healer farther south. She knows herbs, bindings. We lost 2 men last thaw who didn't have to go. You remember. Halvorsen's jaw tightened. Death ruined numbers. We have a medic. We have a drunk with a box of rusted tools, Jonas said. Not loud, but not soft either. A few men grunted agreement. Cook, Lindy said, stepping up beside Nandi. I cook. Feed many men, little food. She nodded toward the earless cook. He has 1 ear. He must need more. A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. The cook scowled but nodded grudgingly. She's not wrong. And you? Halvorsen looked at Sile. The last. Mend, she said. Clothes, boots. Nets when you find river again. I make broken things work. Her mouth tilted. Even men, if they listen. That's more than the whiskey does, someone muttered. Halvorsen drew in a breath that fogged in front of his mouth. He liked order, numbers, things that made sense on paper. 3 displaced women dropped into his perfect columns must have felt like ink spilled across his neat script. You bought them, he said to Jonas, keeping his tone neutral. Yes. Company didn't authorize it. I didn't ask, Jonas replied. The silence that followed had weight. Jonas felt it press along his shoulders, down his spine. Halvorsen tapped the edge of his ledger with gloved fingers. You intend to put them on the company payroll? Jonas hesitated. He hadn't thought that far, just like he'd told Mandy. The image of Eric's grin flashed in his mind. Half in coin, half in labor. Rope creaking in a dim barn. Yes, he said. They earned same as any man. You dock my account if you need balance. Halvorsen's mouth tightened. Your account is already strained, Jonas. You paid off that riverboat advance, but the company still fronts you gear room board. You want 3 more mouths on your conscience. That's your burden. He looked at the women again, then at the circle of watching men. Something calculating flickered there. But extra hands in winter may reduce accidents. Fewer lost days. That's worth a line. He snapped his ledger open, pencil poised. Names? Nandi Dlamingi, Nandi said. He frowned. Spell it? Just write Nandi, Jonas said. You'll know which one. Halvorsen's pencil scratched. Next, Lindy said. Lion DIW. We had books too, once. His eyebrow rose, impressed despite himself. And you? He asked Isol. She spelled it slowly. He wrote, lips moving as he sounded the letters in his head. Fine, he said at last, snapping the book shut. Temporary hire. Food and bunks in exchange for work. No promises after thaw. They cause trouble. They're your problem, Jonas. Their pay, if they last to collect, goes to them. I'm not running another man's debts through my books. Jonas nodded. Something unwound in his chest he hadn't known was knotted. Fair. Halvorsen turned to the assembled men. You got time to stand and gawk. You got time to stack, haul, or sharpen, he said sharply. This isn't a carnival. Back to it. The yard stirred. Men peeled away in pairs and singles, muttering to each other, glancing back at the women as if afraid they'd vanish like a story. Axes rose and fell in the background. Saws whined back to their song. Big Tom stepped closer. Bunk assignments? He asked. Women's space near the medic shack, Jonas said. That corner room with the broken door. I'll fix it. He looked at Nandi. You need privacy, such as it is. We need a lock, Nandi said bluntly. Halvorsen was already halfway across the yard, but he paused without turning. We don't lock doors out here, he called. We're not a city. We are 3, Nandi called back. They are 60. We need a lock. Her voice was not shouting, but it carried. Men stopped again, curiosity brightening to something else. Respect, maybe. Or wariness. Halvorsen turned slowly. His gaze met Nandi's across the trampled snow. For a moment, he seemed ready to snap, to remind her of where she stood on his chart. Then some other thought crossed his face. You want a lock to feel safe, he said. And if I say no and something happens in the night, that's my responsibility on paper. He sighed, white breath looping. Fine. Jonas, you build a proper bar for the inside. I'll see if there's a spare latch in stores. Nandi inclined her head once. Then we work, she said. The medic shack sat at the edge of camp, a low building that leaned slightly toward the river as if tired. One window, cloudy with ice from the inside. Jonas pushed the door open. It protested on its hinges, then gave. Inside, it smelled of alcohol, sweat, and old pain. A narrow bed occupied one wall, piled with blankets that had seen too many winters. A rough table held a jumble of bottles, bandages, and instruments. A man with a gray stubble and red veins in his nose blinked up from a stool, startled. What's this? He croaked. I didn't call for more wood. New housemaids, Doc, Jonas said. Women from downriver. Nandi here knows herbs and wounds better than any of us. Halvorsen's agreed she can help you. The medic squinted at Nandi. His eyes were bloodshot, but not unfriendly. You know how to stitch a leg back on that a saw tried to run off with? He asked. I know how to close a cut so it does not rot, she said. I know which leaves stop blood and which roots break a fever. I know when a man must lose a limb to save his life, and when you can trick his body to keep it. He grunted. Better than half the boys they gave me in the army. He scratched his chin. You want this bed. You take it. I mostly sleep in my chair anyway. Easier to wake when they drag somebody in bleeding. He waved a hand at the clutter. Try not to kill anybody with my bottles. Yellow ones for cleaning. Blue ones for dulling pain. Green ones for making men forget they ever had pain or sense. Sile snorted. Jonas's mouth twitched. There's a small room off the back, Jonas said, nodding toward a half-open door. Storage mostly. We can clear it. 2 of you, there, 1 here. It's not much. It is roof, Lindy said quietly. It is softer than ship. Nandi walked a slow circle, taking in the stained walls, the sagging shelves, the cracked basin. Her fingers trailed over a row of dried plants hanging from a beam, brittle and gray. What are these? She asked. Whatever the last man left, the medic said. He had ideas about willow bark and spruce tips. I stick to whiskey and hot iron. They don't argue much. She took one bundle down, crumbling a leaf between thumb and forefinger, bringing it to her nose. Her expression tightened. Too old, she said. This would fight fever if it remembered how to live. Now it is just dust. You find better in a forest where everything is frozen solid. You let me know, he said. I will. She answered simply. Jonas helped Sihel and Lindy. We cleared the back room, dragging out crates of cracked jars and mouse-eaten rags. Dust hung in the cold air, catching light from the narrow window. They swept the floor with a broken broom until the plank showed. Jonas fetched a spare straw mattress from the loft above the bunkhouse, ignoring the mutters and looks as men watched him carry it alone. By the time they laid the mattresses down and shook out a threadbare blanket, the room almost felt like a place that could hold sleep instead of ghosts. You'll need hooks for your things. Jonas said. I'll bring some scrap and nails later. Maybe a second blanket. Jonas. Nandy's voice stopped him at the doorway. He turned. She stood in the middle of the main room, coat still on, hands at her sides. Behind her, Lindy was arranging their small bundle of belongings on a shelf, one cloth bundle, a wooden comb, a folded strip of patent fabric that had somehow survived sea and rope. Sahil tested the bed sag with a hand, expression unreadable. You do much for us, Nandi said. Now we do something for you. He frowned. I didn't bring you here to pay me back. No, she said. But you carry Thandi's debt like a stone in your chest. It makes your shoulders heavy. It makes your eyes old. She stepped closer, stopping just within arm's reach. Tell me how she died. He swallowed. The room seemed to shrink. The smell of alcohol and metal sharpened. I don't know, he said. You were with her, Nandi insisted. You said, I was with her when I was sick, he cut in. Then the fever broke. She told me to go north. She gave me dried leaves, bark, things to chew. Said I must move before the soldiers came through again. His hand went unconsciously to the front of his shirt, to the spot where she had pressed her palm. I left. When I came back months later, her hut was empty. The clay cracked. Smoke gone. People whispered. They said the fever took her, or the soldiers did, or she walked into the river because she was tired of watching men die under her hands. Nobody knew. Nobody cared to know. He realized his voice had risen. He forced it back down. Nandi studied him. You did not look for long, she said. Not accusation. Observation. I had no right to look, he said. I'd already left when she needed me to stay. She told you to go, Nandi said. When Thandi said go, you went. That means you listened. That is more than most men did. He shook his head. It feels like running. Maybe it was both, she allowed. But you are here, with her mark on your memory. She lifted her skirt just enough to show the black triangles at her ankle. This is for women in our village who keep others alive, she said. Thandi had it first. I had it after. It means we carry many names. Of babies, of old ones, of fools who thought they were braver than fire. It means we remember even when everyone else forgets. Her gaze steadied on his. You remember. So you are ours now, a little. Whether you like or not. His throat worked. What does that mean, ours? She smiled, slow and sad. It means when trees try to eat you, we will spit you back out, she said. It means when you think of walking into the river, we will pull you by your beard. Her eyes flicked to his jaw. He snorted despite himself. I don't have a beard. Then we pull you by your ear, Sahil called from the back room. Lindy laughed, the sound brightening the dim space. Jonas let out a long breath. You've been here less than an hour and already claimed the camp, he said. Someone must, Nandi replied. Men only claim trees and numbers. He shook his head. But something in his chest shifted, just slightly. Like ice on the river, cracking under first thaw. I'll bring that wood for the door bar, he said. Make sure you can sleep with it in place tonight. We will sleep with eyes open, Nandi murmured. But thank you. He stepped back into the pale afternoon, the cold hitting his face like a slap. Around him, the camp pulsed with winter work, the groan of sleds, the shout of orders, the steady rhythm of men fighting trees. Above it all, a new line had been drawn. You are ours now, a little. He headed for the scrap pile near the blacksmith's lean-to, where warped boards and spare iron waited for second lives. As he walked, he felt the eyes on his back. Some curious, some calculating, some resentful. This will not be easy, he thought. He picked up a length of solid plank, hefting it. The wood was dense, heavier than it looked. Like most things up here, if you enjoyed, please subscribe and comment what country you're watching from. See you in the next one.